Webster's dictionary defines a serial killer as a person who murders more than 3 victims, one at a time, in intervals. In this episode, we'll explore 5 of the most evil black serial killers to terrorize the U.S. But before I get into all of that, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, run down on the comments, and share. It's the Crime Street Journal. Darren Dion Van, the Gary Strangler. Darren Dion Van murdered women from 2001 until his arrest in 2014. Van preyed on female sex workers that he picked up on websites like Backpage, where he would strangle and rape his victims, leaving the bodies in motels and abandoned homes. When 19-year-old Africa Hardy was found strangled in a Motel 6 bathtub, authorities used cell phone records to track down Van. When arrested, Van was found with Hardy's phone. Eventually, he confessed to killing Hardy and told police about other killings.
I guess what I'm asking, how do you connect the rage with these people that
they're random. They're random. All it does is take the wrong person to say something, or it triggers something from my past. That's why I really can't give you Illinois, because Illinois probably has a whole lot of. They have more than Indiana, let's say that.
Yeah.
They have way more than Indiana.
Van received life in prison without parole for the murder of 7 women, but law enforcement believe he may have murdered 18 women. Chester Dwayne Turner, the Southside Slayer. Chester Dwayne Turner murdered women in the Los Angeles area from 1987 until his arrest in 2002 for sexual assault. While in prison, Turner was required to give a DNA sample, which was able to link him to several unsolved murders. Turner stalked the South LA area, targeting women who were homeless, drug addicts, and prostitutes. He would rape and strangle them for his sexual pleasure, then dump the bodies in vacant homes and buildings. Turner was sentenced to death in 2007 for the murder of 15 women. Lonnie Franklin Jr., the Grim Sleeper. Lonnie Franklin Jr. murdered women in the Los Angeles area from 1985 to 2010. Women were either shot at close range, choked, or both. Then, he would photograph their unconscious bodies. After, Franklin would then dump the bodies into alleys and trash bins. In 2010, Franklin's son was arrested and required to give a DNA sample. The investigators discovered the DNA had a genetic similarity to the Grim Sleeper killings. In a sting operation to identify the Grim Sleeper, a detective went undercover as a busboy in a pizzeria where Franklin was attending a birthday party. The undercover collected the crust and utensils Franklin used. That evidence was able to link Franklin directly to the killings. When detectives raided Franklin's home, they found a bizarre collection of more than 1,000 photographs and several hours of video of different women. In 2016, Franklin was sentenced to death, but in 2020, he was found dead in his cell. Franklin was convicted of 14 murders, but it's presumed by law enforcement he murdered as many as 25 women. Carl Eugene Watts, the Sunday morning slasher. Carl Eugene Watts terrorized Michigan and Texas from 1974 until his arrest in 1982. Watts would kidnap women from their homes, torture and kill his victims by drowning, strangulation, stabbings, or beating them to death. In 1982, Watts broke into an apartment of 2 women. Watts choked one of the women coming into her apartment, was able to get inside, and began choking the other woman, but she was able to slip free, jump out the window, and get help. Watts was arrested and eventually convicted and confessed the murder and received life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2007, Watts died in prison of prostate cancer. Watts was charged of killing 22 women, but he claims to have killed 80. Samuel Little, the choke and stroke killer. Samuel Little had a span of terror from 1970 until 2005 across 19 states. Little would target vulnerable women, sex workers, and drug addicts. As a former competitive boxer, Little would knock out his victims with a punch, then strangle them to death with his bare hands. He would then rape his victims and dump the bodies. In 2012, Little was arrested on narcotic charges, and while in custody, law enforcement required him to take a DNA test, eventually linking him to several unsolved murders. Later, Little eventually confessed to other murders. Little had a photographic memory and was able to accurately remember where and how he killed all his victims and where he dumped their bodies. Little was also able to hand draw a detailed description of all his victims.
I met her in a nightclub in New Orleans. And while we were dancing, she says, you want to go riding after this, after the party's over? We walked outside and she looked and seen my car at Lincoln. She said, ooh, that's a beautiful car too. So she had arm in arm, walking to the car, seen the sign say Little Woods. Mm-hmm. So I cut off, I took off the exit, went, and that sure enough was the road leading into the woods. I grabbed her by the legs and pulled her to the water. Mm-hmm. That's the only one that I ever killed by drowning.
Eventually, he was sentenced to 4 life sentences with no parole, but died on death row in 2020 at the age of 80. The FBI confirmed Little committed 60 murders, but Little confessed to murdering 93 women. Thanks for watching this video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, run down on the comments, and share. It's the Crime Street Journal.